The opinions expressed during this show do not represent those of this station. If you've missed any of this show, you can follow the podcast at energeticcity.ca. Now, an in-depth look at the news and information shaping our community. This is Moose Talks with your host, Doug Craig, on Moose FM.
Welcome to the show. Well, it is election season here in BC for local governments. That includes in Fort St. John, Charlie Lake and Taylor, Hudson's Hope, and also in the PRRD for all the electoral areas. So we're going to be focusing on some of the races that'll affect us locally, including the Fort St. John mayor's race, which will be coming up in a couple weeks from now. But first, we thought we'd talk a little bit about Electoral Area B. As longtime director of that area, Karen Goodings won 5-6 elections, something like that, is retiring. And so 3 people have stepped up to replace her in this election. So we will be speaking to each of them this morning. Let's start with our first candidate for Electoral Area B, Jordan Kealy. Good morning, Jordan. How are you doing today?
Having a great morning. I hope everybody else is doing good as well.
Well, thank you very much for being here again. You've been here before to talk a bit about your farm and also to talk about the food you provide. So now you're here wearing a different hat in the political realm. So I thought we'd start with kind of the basic question about why you're about this. Why did you choose to run for office? Why now? What are you hoping to get out of this?
I'm not doing it to be a politician. Yeah. I'm not doing it for money. I'm doing it to try and have positive change and to try and keep our way of life in this area. I've lived here for a while now, and I absolutely love it in this area. And hopefully I can help improve things more.
I see. Do you think it's a matter of maybe you didn't like how maybe previous boards on the PRRD were handling things, or you just think I can step up and continue to sort of carry that mantle and hopefully improve on what they've done as well?
I think there's things that I can disagree with and agree with that the previous boards do. Like they're there trying to make a difference as well. There's some things that I didn't agree with that I would have done differently, but I wasn't in the position at the time to try and change it myself, but I voted on different things and different referendums. Now I'm looking at trying to take a bigger role, and hopefully I can represent all of my neighbors in a positive manner as well.
You kind of mentioned your way of life being important to you and protecting it. Kind of specifically, I wonder kind of what's important to you. Is there a specific issue, something that maybe has been overlooked, or as you mentioned, you disagree with kind of how the current board has done so far, that really motivated you here, that you would like to see change and I'd like to help change?
I think there's been some certain things done where they got passed and put through without really consulting everybody thoroughly, and then some referendums were ran and people were opposed strongly to different things. I think the main thing that we could improve on there is actually getting that communication out better, so then we don't actually have to have it go to a referendum to have everything overhauled and turned back. That I really think that communication is what can be done better. So as for what I can do better than them, I don't really know until I'm actually voted in, and I can try and do that. I can say and make all the promises possible, but that's, how do I say it? That's what a standard politician does, and whether or not they follow through, that's the main difference. And when I say that I'm going to do something, I try my hardest to make it happen, and I'm a straight shooter, and I say things how I see them.
Okay. Well, I've got a few kind of specific things I want to ask you about. And you mentioned this kind of before we even got on the air, kind of infrastructure being a big deal. I think about my travels in kind of the Cecil Lake area, for example, where the road is just gravel road, where it washed out. They've never really fixed it. The coulees is kind of another area that's really dangerous. Is that something that concerns you? And are you, while it might be difficult in your role to specifically directly affect change, is that a way you'll kind of advocate for the region in that We need roads that are fixed, that are paved, that work properly, so that everybody can be safely traveling on them and using them.
I think we're a region that typically gets forgotten about.
Yeah.
I was originally from the Lower Mainland. I grew up there, and I grew up in 4-H, and I loved that lifestyle. And the Lower Mainland got bigger and grew into a bigger city, and I really like the country, so that's why I moved out here. And the Lower Mainland has the population, they have the seats, they have the political structure to make those big decisions. And unfortunately, us being up this far, it makes it difficult to have that impact and sway over the provincial government on some of the decisions that are done here.
Yeah.
So certain things like our healthcare system, our roads, our infrastructure, our food security, all of these are matters that I hope to be able to try and discuss with cabinet ministers if I can.
Yeah.
And hopefully try and enlighten, just because we can have a cabinet minister that goes from dealing with academic and get appointed as agriculture.
Yeah.
So you have somebody provincially that's in charge of agriculture that has no experience whatsoever what they're dealing with. And I'm hoping that rather than trying to fight with those people, that we just try and let them know what we're going through and to try and work with them to make things happen in a positive way. I think there's a lot of things that could be improved up here, because we can be a major hub for so many different industries up here.
Okay. A specific thing that's happened in the last year or two, if I remember right, has to do with the Adeline Kelly building on the North Peace Fall Fair grounds. And, there's been it seems like a series of miscommunications between the society and the PRRD on that. I wonder if you wanted to comment on that, and if there's maybe a different approach you would take in sort of resolving that issue with the society going forward.
So when it comes to structural integrity, which I think was the issue on that, I'm not a building inspector, so I refer to them and get their advice. And I'm not currently part of the decision-making process in that. Yeah. But I think every building out there is important, and it's vital to what they can have there and help the community work. So what I try to end up doing is just resolve the current problem. Yeah. And the more information that I know about it, if I'm elected, that's exactly what I do. If it's structural integrity, then it's something that can be resolved. It doesn't have to be a big fight.
Are you in favor of the assent question on the Fort St. John Public Library financial contribution? As I understand it, people in Electoral Area B can use the library. You can get a library card. This would increase your taxes slightly, I believe, every year if everyone votes for it. Is that something you think is a good idea? Are you okay with that? Or
I don't know all of the exact details on that. I think I'd rather get more information on that first and give you a better answer.
Okay. And then one final one for you. We wrote a story recently at Energetic City hearing about hall closures in kind of the PRRD. So local halls, they're running out of volunteers, they're running out of money, and some of them are getting really old, and rather than maybe thinking about replacing them, there's some thought to perhaps we're just going to close them. Is that something you think is an important part, as you say, of the way of life, to maybe maintain these halls, to work harder at what can we do to invest in them, to invest in getting people to keep them kind of going so that they're there for people to use?
I think those halls are vital, especially in a big area, especially Area B. It's one area that is bigger than all the other areas combined. And those halls are a means for each of those areas of people to communicate with each other, gather. It's part of their local infrastructure. So hopefully we can look at improving those and make it so that they don't close, because I think it is vital. But I think the pandemic has also affected how the events can happen at those halls as well. So hopefully if it's behind us, we can try and correct that.
All right. I'm going to give you one more minute here, Jordan, if you would. You've covered a lot of this already, but I wonder, speak to people listening who are from Electoral Area B right now. Why should they vote for you?
The main reason that I'm doing this is to try and promote positive change, listen to what the constituents want, and get feedback from them, and then go to the actual municipalities and see what we can do to actually make that change happen. I can be frustrated when most of the time I hear is just talk.
Yeah.
And I have always been about taking action. That's one of the things that me being a mechanic, if there's a problem, I fix it. And I try and I put that in my bio, that when I fix something, I try and fix it so I don't have to come back and deal with it again. And then it's more efficient in that manner. It's the same thing with my farm, and I think it can be the same thing with this area as well, is that we can make progress in the same way. I think Karen Goodings made huge progress and offering a lot of services, and so many people were happy with what she's done in the time that she's been there. And I went and talked to her even before I put my name in for this and got her advice, and she's still sharp as a tack. But that's my main thing, is that I want to give people in my area the chance to be heard and make them feel like they're actually being heard, that the issues that they're having, that I'm actually dealing with it to the best of my ability.
Awesome. All right, Jordan. Well, we'll leave it there. I really appreciate you making time for us and driving here to do it live. It's always nice to see you. Thanks for being here.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. That's Jordan Kealy, one of the candidates for Electoral Area B in the Peace River Regional District. We'll be right back to talk to the other candidates right after this on Moose Talks. Welcome back to the show. I'm Dub Craig. We're going to continue our coverage of Electoral Area B candidates now with Michael Fitzgerald, who joins us live in the studio. Michael, thank you so much for being on Moose Talks today.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Dub.
I appreciate you driving in for this. So we'll start with this same question I asked Jordan. Why are you running for office?
Well, it's interested me for quite a few years, but being neighbors with Karen, I never ran against her. I mean, we're good friends, and the opportunity came up. So I thought, I've always wanted to kind of been involved in the community things. Like I've been part of the Cecil Lake Recreation, president of the recreation for a while. I was a school trustee for 4 years. I've sat on 2 different committees with the regional district. So it's just to kind of get involved, and so this is just another way.
What do you think's kind of important to you as a candidate then? Kind of specific things, if you can name.
Specific things to me are road conditions.
Yeah.
I don't think we get very good priority, probably partially because of who we vote for regionally. Road maintenance is another really sore point with me. I don't think the company that's doing it right now is doing a very good job. Not just weeds. I don't know if you've ever been out to Cecil Lake or not, but the valley is full of thistle. And I don't know if at one time the regional district used to have a person that went around and kind of inform people that they had to spray for weeds and looking at it. It doesn't seem to be happening anymore. So those are 3 of the things that I'm really interested in. Price of fuel. I know it's out of the regional district's ability to do anything, but maybe they can be lobbying the government a little harder to try and get some relief for farmers.
Okay. I wanted to, you've already brought up Karen, of course, who is retiring after 30 some odd years in the role as director. I wonder what you think you might be able to improve upon her tenure, or tenure, I should say. How do you want to carry the mantle forward if you were elected kind of to replace Karen?
I'm not sure that what she did could be improved on, but I would like to, continue her, what I feel was her cooperation amongst, other members of the regional district and other municipalities in the region. it's not like a provincial politics. Like the regional district is got to work together.
Yeah.
And I'm not going in there saying that I'm going to change the way we're doing things and it's got to be this way. That's just, I don't know. I've never been to a regional district meeting. I shouldn't say that. I was to one, but it's just you have to work in with other people, the other delegates.
Okay. I'll move on to some specific things again. You already brought up kind of the roads issue. I wonder if you wanted to expand on that a bit. What do you think, what would you hope to accomplish if you got elected in regards to seeing more maintenance, better maintenance of the roads kind of in the electoral area? And you even mentioned the company you think maybe could be doing better.
Well, maybe the regional district could, in cooperation with municipalities, invite, the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure up here to look at our roads, drive some of them, I was a transportation supervisor for 15 years at the school district.
Yeah.
And we were told that we have to run our buses for 12 years, some of them for 15. And our roads don't, we don't drive on pavement everywhere for school buses. And our roads don't allow buses to run that long without major repairs. So, and I know I believe he's been up here not very long ago, but we're just, the Taylor Bridge, and is another thing. I mean, it needs to be replaced. And they seem to be dragging their feet now. They're talking 5 years before they make a decision.
Yeah.
Do we have 5 years?
So you'd say you'd be in favor then of the PRRD lobbying more, maybe joining forces even with our MLA to talk to the provincial government about we need to solve these infrastructure problems sooner rather than later.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to bring up the Adeline Kelly building as well. That's been a big story kind of in the past year, the North Peace Fall Fairgrounds. I wondered if you wanted to comment on that or how you might foresee going forward on that issue or planning to go forward if you got elected.
Well, I actually, other than what I've read in, a little bit in the paper and on Moose FM and one thing that I really don't know a lot about that issue. I don't know. I don't even know how old the building is. I haven't been to very many fall fairs. Just scheduling and one thing and another. I've been to a few and I have enjoyed them, but I don't really have much information on that topic. So
okay. What about the library? That's kind of one of the assent questions where, as I understand, a little increase of taxes will go on everybody in the electoral area if they decide to financially contribute to the library, which they're already allowed to use and make use of. Are you in favor of that?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I've lived. My children grew up in Cecil Lake. My son was a year and a half old when we moved out there, and my daughter was 3.5. We used the library extensively while they were going to school because that was before the internet, and I firmly believe that it needs to be funded by all the whole area.
Yeah. Okay.
And I understand that people living in Pink Mountain probably don't want to contribute to the library because it's a long drive for them. But it could be prorated as to somehow maybe how far away you live. But we've as a family have used the library extensively.
I see. Okay. And the final question kind of for you on this, I brought this up with Jordan too. Another story is about kind of rural hall closures and how the PRRD's looking at sort of aging halls, in and around places like Electoral Area B. What do you think your approach to that would be? Do we look in investigating and keeping them open, or is it something that we kind of have to leave in the past and allow them to kind of go away because they're just not being used like they were before?
I think they're very valuable to the community.
Yeah.
I understand that sometimes they don't get used, and the last couple of years has been kind of but as I say, I was president of the Cecil Lake Recreation Commission for a few years. I understand where we get our funding from the regional district, as well as they they have functions out there that they raise money. But I think they're valuable to the communities, and we have to try to work with the communities to keep them going.
Okay. One final question for you, and I'll give you a minute for it. Just finally, again, you've touched on this already, but why should people of Electoral Area B vote for you, Michael?
Longtime resident, was born and raised in Fort St. John. I think I understand people's needs of the rural areas. Like I said, the price of fuel, the roads, the road maintenance, noxious weeds, stuff like this. I just, I just wanted to kind of get involved, I guess. So.
All right. Well, Michael, I appreciate you taking time, and again, also for driving out to do this for us today. Thank you very much.
No problem.
All right, that's Michael Fitzgerald, another Electoral Area B candidate running in the election coming up. All right, we'll talk to our final candidate right after this on Moose Talks. We're chatting with candidates in Electoral Area B in the PRRD today in the local government elections, and our final candidate joins us now. Jeff Kitt, welcome to Moose Talks.
Thank you for having me in.
Thank you very much for being here. I appreciate it. I'll start with the same question I started with the other two candidates. Why are you running for office?
I'm born and raised in this area, longtime resident. Lived here my whole life. Raised my family here. Mm-hmm. I believe in the area. I believe in the people that live here. And when Karen was basically hinting that she wasn't going to be running again, if you don't step up to do your part, your civic duty as a representative for your people of your area, then you have to be willing to accept the ones that do. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard to stand on the sidelines and complain about it if you're not wanting to be involved. So I decided I would get involved. I reached out and talked to Director Goodings, and she wanted to give me some tutorage on it, and so I became her alternate for the regional district here for Area B in February of this year. So I've spent the last 8 months working with her and working with the regional district and attending meetings and that kind of stuff. So
I see.
Wanted to carry on that and make it official and throw my name in the ring and represent the people of Area B.
Okay. What is important to you as a candidate? Are there specific things you can name that you say, I'd like to see more action on this, or I'd like to be a part of this solution on this?
There's so many things facing us in today's society as far as that goes. And this being in a rural area, I mean, regional area B of the regional district has got basically 5,500 people scattered over a very large area. Yeah. And some of the things that are affecting them and make their life more challenging is the lack of communications, the lack of connectivity. So really like to see the connectivity, the increase in cell service and the increase in broadband internet being brought into the area to give people that connectivity. We've really noticed it in the last 2 years with the pandemic, in that people weren't allowed to go out and gather and stuff like that like they used to. So having that ability to have that communication and have that connectivity with each other is very vital, very important.
Absolutely. Is that, I mean, I don't know how much, like, in the official sort of, responsibilities of a PRRD director that is, but is that something that you look, again, like advocating for, kind of pushing for, trying to meet with the people who can make that be an improvement in the area, whether it's the local MLA or, as previous candidates had mentioned, trying to meet with the government on that they can actually do something and invest in it here in the area?
Yeah, exactly. It is, like you said, lobbying other local government officials, MLAs, MPs, and getting that recognition that this area is a huge tax base for the province. A lot of money is collected up here from oil and gas and logging revenues, mining as well, and that money leaves the area and doesn't come back in. So seeing the province and even the federal government allowing us to utilize more of the revenue that's in this area is very important to the people of this area.
Mm-hmm. I'll get to some specific questions about some issues that have kind of come up recently that may affect the voting and the whatnot in the area. The Adeline Kelly building on the North Peace Fall Fairgrounds. I wonder if you'd be willing to comment on how you could maybe see a solution coming to that situation, because there seems to be a lot of miscommunication about who is what and there is this person there and that. Are you someone in favor of trying to like resolve the situation quickly and kind of maintain the relationship you have with the society?
Yeah, definitely. That has to be resolved. I mean, the society has put a lot of time and effort and resources into getting their existing facility up and running, and unfortunately, some mistakes were made, and I's weren't dotted and T's weren't crossed when the original designs and concept were being put forth. But yeah, we need to work as a community and find a resolution for that sooner than later. I mean, they've got this big, beautiful building that can't really be used until something is done. So there's motions and requests that have been put forward to the board, and we're working on solutions to see what we can do to make that a usable space.
Talking about roads again, I think everybody has mentioned as part of the kind of challenges facing it, the Taylor Bridge, but even specifically kind of closer to town in the area and whatnot, you know, the Motley Coulees down in there, there's a gravel part on the top of the Cecil Lake Road that just seems like, well, they did it as quickly as they could to fix it and got out of here. How would you work on that? And again, is it just stronger advocation for the Ministry of Transportation to come down here and see that we need these roads maintained better because we're using them?
Yeah, definitely, for sure. There's, you've mentioned the Cecil Lake Road and Montney Coulee. Yeah. There's 4 or 5 rivers that and creeks that these roads run throughout the regional district. Even the Farrell Creek Road, it as well has had some sloughing issues. Peterson's Crossing, going across the Beaton, heading up into to the Doig or into PJ in that area. They're having issues with that road as well. It's down to barely one lane in some areas. And there needs to be more improvement in our infrastructure and our roads up here, and for all of it. And again, that's advocating back to provincial MLAs, and even as far as the federal government goes on the Alaska Highway, because we're having problems with it as well, and that's a federally maintained road. But advocating for improvements to our infrastructure, because that infrastructure is needed to for the province to generate the revenue that it does from this area.
One of the assent questions that's going to be asked of all the PRRD residents is the financial contribution to the Fort St. John Public Library, which again, as I understand, all residents have access to now. This would just be, can we help out the library more because we're accessing the services, I suppose, is the idea. Are you in favor of that? Is that something you think is a good idea?
Libraries are an important part of any community. They are a gathering place within a community. They provide services and access that members of the community can go in and use internet, use the services of finding information and collecting information. And I know that our library here in Fort St. John has really had some challenges over the last while getting finances and keeping operational and actually keeping their doors open. It is still an important gathering point for a community as far as establishment of what a community is, to have a library involved in there. So I think it is an important part of what we need to look at, for sure.
Okay. And then finally, I want to bring up the rural hall closures. Again, rural halls, some of them getting very old, they need maintenance, less volunteers. They're having a harder time finding people to volunteer to kind of help with that and whatnot. What's your stance on that? Is this something we need to continue to invest in? Or, is that just going to cost money? And since we're seeing less use than maybe perhaps we used to be, we need to move on from them and just let them go?
Yeah, the halls issue is it's definitely a tricky one. I know there's communities out there who are actually wanting to invest in their hall, invest in a hall period for their community. And they are, any kind of a public gathering place is a very expensive building to maintain, so you have to have the usage of it. You have to have the people in the community that want to come out and want to use it, that want to contribute to volunteering to make sure the grounds are upkept and the building is upkept. And a lot of these buildings weren't exactly built to proper building codes when they were originally constructed, because they were built by volunteers, and building codes really didn't get outside the municipal boundaries. And when you go in and start touching that kind of stuff, then you're worrying about liability issues and stuff like that, so you have to fix them right. And this is not much different than the Kelly building. The rules are there and they have to be followed as far as what the building codes are for the occupancy of those people being there. And if the members of the communities individually want to stay engaged and keep their halls open and active, then there are ways and there are things that they can do to achieve that. So
Okay. All right, final question to you, Jeff. We got just about a minute left here. Why should people vote for you in Electoral Area B?
Like I said, I've been born and raised here. I've been a long-time resident. Through my work and personal life, I have traveled from one edge of this regional district to the other. I've got friends and people all across the regional district. I've seen the challenges that people face regardless of the communities that they live in. And I am looking forward to having an opportunity, if I get elected, to represent everybody within this regional district and allowing their voices to be heard and to bring forth their concerns and see if we can get some resolution to stuff.
Awesome. All right, Jeff. Well, I appreciate you again coming down to see us here and join us for the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
You're very welcome. That's Jeff Kitt, candidate for Electoral Area B in the upcoming local elections in the PRRD. Well, that'll do it for today's episode of Moose Talks. We want to thank our other guests, Jordan Kealy and Michael Fitzgerald, for being here, along with Jeff. Again, voting day coming up on October 15th, so make sure you're registered and all that good news. And stay tuned here on energeticcity.ca, as we're going to have even bigger coverage of the candidates in all the local races, including councillors here in Fort St. John, mayor races, other areas of the electoral of the PRRD as well, over at energeticcity.ca. And in future episodes of Moose Talks, we'll be talking to more candidates as well, so stay tuned for that. Jordan Prentice is the producer of Moose Talks. I'm Dub Craig. Thanks so much for being here. Be well.